Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name's FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be discussing the top transfers going into Game Week 10. Now Game Week 9 was eventful. I was a manager that captained Mo Salah with Haaland getting that hat-trick, which decimated my rank. So first and foremost guys, let me know in the comments if you were a Salah captor, and congratulations to those that did captain Haaland. But hopefully in this video we can provide you some insight going into Game Week 10, which can help you propel you up those overall ranks. So if you are new around here guys, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the content you're watching, make sure you do drop a like on the video. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so the first player we are going to be looking at is Leandro Trossard. Of course, picking up that fantastic hat-trick against Liverpool in Game Week 9. And to be honest with you, quite a surprising performance from Brighton. I was really surprised to see how quickly they integrated with the new manager in charge. Now, it's worth mentioning, Brighton under Graham Potter were fantastic, so the new manager may just be picking up a fantastic team and continuing rolling these players out. But nonetheless, it looks like Brighton haven't been phased with the departure of Graham Potter, and in particular, Leandro Trossard. Now, an amazing performance in Game Week 9. It's worth noting that while Graham Potter was almost operating him as a left wing back, but we know he was basically playing as the left-sided of a front three when they were in attacking positions, Trossard was basically playing as a front two alongside Welbeck, so a slight change in his position under the new manager, which is worth noting going forward. And I do think that is going to positively impact him as an FPL option. So, as we mentioned, picking up a hat-trick in Game Week 9, which has now brought him to 5 goals in 7 games. And expected goals are 2.8. And of course, while there is a slight gap there between the actual 5 goals and 2.8 expected goals, this is still fantastic reading for somebody who was a 6.7 million midfielder. I think that's brilliant reading. And importantly as well, such a well-rounded asset as well. 2 FPL assists to go alongside his 5 goals is fantastic returns for a player in this department. Of course, leading the line basically in that price bracket ahead of the likes of Rashford, Martinelli, for example. And what I really am impressed with Leandro Trossard as well is, of course, we've had a few postponements in the league. We can really focus on how he's been performing in the games that he has featured. And you can see that 7.4 FPL points per game is actually the best of all midfielders. So he's beating the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah, Son. And as we said, he has the joint most goals for midfielders with 5. So what I'm really impressed with Leandro Trossard is he's actually delivering in terms of goal scoring, which I think we've had question marks about him over the past few seasons. And when he is operating in this team, he is delivering in the FPL points department and getting so high up in the pitch, which is just so impressive to see for a Brighton option. Now, looking at the upcoming game weeks, over the next 4 game weeks, he is expected to score 14.6 points, which is actually the 5th best for midfielders at 7 million and below. And those names that are above him right now are Harrison of Leeds, Harvey Barnes, Rashford, and Rodrigo. Now, with the names that I mentioned there, yes, they are projected to score more points than Leandro Trossard, but the likes of Leeds, Leicester, even maybe Man United, I would argue right now are not in a better place than Brighton. And sometimes when we are selecting our FPL options, yes, there might be players that are projected to score more points, but sometimes they are operating in teams that aren't really at the level of other teams. Brighton to be the example here. And while Trossard isn't necessarily the highest projected points, I think he's playing in one of the best teams in the league right now. We need to take that into account when we are considering our picks. So to round up Trossard, I think at 6.7 million, he is a fantastic FPL option. A brilliant Sinistero replacement, obviously having that red card in Game Week 9 if you're looking for a sideways move. I wouldn't recommend managers selling Martinelli to Trossard. I still think Martinelli offers fantastic value even though he blanks in Game Week 12. But if you are stacked with Man City and Arsenal players and you're a little bit worried about that Game Week 12 fixture, you can see there that fantastic home fixture against Nottingham Forest in Game Week 12. So you could sell some of your assets at blank in Game Week 12 for Leandro Trossard. And I really don't hate the move of you bringing him in early in Game Week 10 against Spurs and holding him up until that Game Week 12 fixture, where could he be a differential captaincy at that point? He could potentially be one. So guys, let me know what your thoughts are on Leandro Trossard. I think he is a fantastic option, playing in a brilliant team who is effectively playing as a forward, which just makes him very, very great FPL value. That was terrible grammar there, guys. So next up, we are going to be looking at another option who hasn't necessarily hit the heights of Trossard so far this season, but could be starting to emerge as a brilliant FPL option once again. And that man is going to be Jarrod Bowen. Now, a guy who was on absolute flames last season, hasn't really hit the heights so far this year. And it's worth mentioning West Ham as a team in general haven't really been delivering alongside Bowen. It's worth mentioning West Ham as a team actually have the third worst expected goals of all teams in the league at 7.31. So again, when we are considering attacking options, as I mentioned with Leandro Trossard playing in a Brighton team, we were looking excellent. Yes, Bowen is a good FPL option, but are the team actually performing? That's something that we do need to consider. Now, Bowen's game week 9 performance was the best he's had so far this season. 0.35 expected goals and a 0.25 expected assists with 4 shots in that game. So we're starting to see that sort of shot volume and goal involvement that we were so used to seeing from him last season. You can see there, only 1 goal in his 8 games, that first coming in game week 9, and accumulated expected goals of 1.3. So again, yes, he is underperforming his expected goals, but at 8.1 million, I'll be wanting to see that expected goals 2, 3, maybe even 3.5, especially when we're looking at the likes of Trossard, Zaha, having much higher expected goals. And 1 FPL assist, again, not really the numbers we want to be seeing for someone of his price bracket. But with touches in the opposition box being in the top 10 of midfielders at 41, and his projected points coming up are 16.2, it's worth noting that he has the 3rd best projected points for midfielders at 8.5 million and under. The 2 that are above him are James Maddison at 18.9 and Wilfried Zaha at 19.4. So again, it is worth noting that Bowen in the projected points department is in the top 3. However, there are better options out there, I do believe, in the shape of James Maddison at Leicester, who's had a fantastic game week 9 performance, and Wilfried Zaha at Crystal Palace. Now, the one thing I want to consider as well for Jarrod Bowen is, of course, when we are building our squads and considering our transfers, we do need to, as I mentioned about Leandro Trossard, remember that game week 12 is a blank, in particular for those managers that have multiple Man City and Arsenal assets. And Jarrod Bowen away against Liverpool, I would argue, is one of the trickier fixtures in that blank game week 12. And yes, Liverpool defensively have not been the best by any stretch, and Bowen could definitely cause problems on the break against Liverpool. But when I am considering options for our transfers, I think game week 12 needs to be in that consideration right now. And with that fixture away against Liverpool, it just makes me think that Maddison, Zaha, maybe even Trossard might be worth considering above Jarrod Bowen. But nonetheless, I still think in the next 2 fixtures, and even game week 13, Bowen could really come into his own. And if you do own him, in particular those at wildcard and in game week 8, he is absolutely a hold. And you hope to see these underlying numbers that he did produce in game week 9 to be consistent in those coming game weeks. But let me know what your thoughts are in the chat, guys. Let me know if Bowen is someone that you're considering bringing in. I personally, at that price point, just want to see a little bit more from him. He needs to really overperform the likes of Maddison and Zaha before he becomes an FPL consideration in our teams. So last up, guys, let's take a look at a player that has come back from injury and really on the radar for me personally in my game week 10 transfers. And that man is going to be Newcastle's Callum Wilson. And Wilson, is worth noting, is one of my favourite FPL options season in, season out. He is just a classic goal scorer, very similar to almost like Jermaine Defoe. You can tell he is just put on that pitch just to score goals. In terms of underlying stats for expected assists and general assists, there is nothing to report at all. This man is on that field to basically score the goals for Newcastle. And that's something that I absolutely love when I'm considering a FPL option, similar to like Haaland at Man City. You know that team is spearheaded to effectively get this guy to put the ball in the goal. And with only 4 games played and 3 goals, you can see that his expected goals of 3.3 is ridiculous. And really, I really do think that this is a sustainable number for Callum Wilson and something that we can see him ticking over regularly each and every game week. But the big question mark for him is, can he keep fit? That is the big problem for Callum Wilson. Now, 11 shots so far in those 4 games. Not necessarily at the highest shot volume, it's worth noting, but all 11 of those shots coming in the box, which is big reading. He's not one of those forwards that picks up from 30 yards and lets rip. As I mentioned, Newcastle are structured for him to be in that box, scoring from these crosses or through balls. And with 11 shots in the box and all of those being in the box, just makes me think that this is going to be sustainable numbers for him going forward. And also what I love about Callum Wilson, as I mentioned, is his expected goals non-penalty per 90. So basically, what does he deliver without penalties included per 90 minutes? And that is 0.9 per 90, which is absolutely ridiculous in the expected goals department. Of course, the only player that is beating him right now is Haaland. So he is second best for forwards who have played over 200 minutes, is worth noting. Now, looking at the projected points over the next 4 game weeks, it's worth noting that Callum Wilson isn't necessarily coming out the best on our algorithm. He is currently the 10th best for all forwards. So we have the likes of Dominic Solanke, Mitrovic, all these players who look like better options over the next 4 game weeks. But what I do want to note is, again, it comes back to my point about buying players in teams that are performing well. Now, I said about the likes of Solanke and all having higher projected points than Callum Wilson over the next 4 game weeks, but we know that Newcastle as a team are much more functionally better than these other teams that we are considering. It's worth noting that Newcastle are currently the 3rd best for expected goals in the league of all teams. Only Arsenal and Man City have better in this department. So again, when I'm considering a forward, I want to be buying into a team that are actually creating chances. And Newcastle this season are looking exactly that. And Brentford, we know, away from home, aren't the same team that they are at home. So I think that's a great fixture for Callum Wilson. And Man United away, we've seen a very differing, almost Jekyll and Hyde team. They can be resolute in their times, but we saw against Man City and get carved open. I think that could be a game where Wilson could get some joy against the likes of Varane and Martinez at the back. And Everton away from home, very different to what they are at Goodison Park. And then a Spurs team. So I really do think, although our projected points don't show Callum Wilson to be the best option, I personally think at 7.2 million, if you're looking for a differential between now and the World Cup, then this is a player that you need to consider. And in particular, for those managers that are currently sat there with Mitrovic. Now, just to quickly touch on this, my thoughts are right now, if Mitrovic is only ruled out for game week 10, you hold Mitrovic because his fixtures afterwards are fantastic. However, if we get confirmation that maybe Mitrovic is out for a number of game weeks, if you have the money available to go up to Callum Wilson at 7.2 million, I personally think that that is a fantastic move for you to make in your FPL team. Now, of course, with Isaac currently injured, we need to know how that does impact Wilson once Isaac returns. But personally, I think Eddie Howe views Callum Wilson as his number 1 forward, and we're likely to see Callum Wilson operating down the middle with Isaac on the right or Almiron and St. Maximin off the left. So I think that's only going to enhance Callum Wilson as an FPL option. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's top transfers video. Let me know in the comments, who are your current top transfers going into game week 10? And again, if you did enjoy the content on this channel, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this particular video, please do drop a like. It always helps out on the algorithm. And all the information was taken from Fantasy Football Fix. All the links are in the bio. I highly recommend downloading our free app to keep up to date with all things FPL. And we will see you in the next video, guys. Take care. Cheers.